Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. I'm Hasham Ali Khan. In this video, I'm going to explain you about the registration under GST. So who are the persons who are required to get their business registered under GST and who are the persons who are not required to register themselves under GST, and when the registration of GST is compulsory. These things I'm going to explain you in this video, and this topic is very important. Every now and then in examination the question will be asked regarding the registration procedure. What are the provisions under GST Act regarding the registration of a business? That's what I'm going to explain. In the previous videos I have explained the meaning, benefits of GST, debit note, credit note, how the payment of GST will be made, and what are the taxes that are subsumed in GST, and what are the different terms like CGST, SGST, IGST, GSTIN. All these topics I've already covered up in the previous videos. So if you have not watched, I suggest you to go to the playlist of my channel. Select the subject Theory and Practice of GST. In that, watch the initial videos, be acquainted with the concepts now. Before starting this registration, take a screenshot of the points which I have written on the board, then I explain the procedure of registration. Now, registration. Registration is the most important requirement under any tax payment system. Under any tax payment, first of all, we have to see the registration provisions. So under GST also, specific provisions are there how a person should get their business registered under the GST Act. It helps in identification of taxpayers who need to comply with the provisions. What is the purpose of this registration? The GST, the law will identify, will recognize the business with the help of this registration number. So registration number will be allotted. So GST will see whether the business is registered one or not. For that identification purpose, the businesses should get themselves registered. So when the business should get themselves registered under GST, we will explain here. Only a person who is registered can collect the GST and is eligible to avail the benefits of input credit tax mechanism. So only the registered businesses, they can collect the GST from the customers and they are eligible to get ITC, input tax credit mechanism. Benefit they will get. Otherwise, if they have not registered themselves, they will not get the benefit of input tax credit. Input tax credit is the backbone. Already I explained in the last video of the GST. With the help of ITC only, the tax liability will get reduced. Otherwise, heavy tax will be applied on the business. Now, persons not liable to register. So, GST Act has given some persons who are not liable, who are not required to get their business registered. Who are those persons? First one, supply of non-taxable or wholly exempted goods or services. GST Act has specified some non-taxable goods or non-taxable services. So if a business deals in those non-taxable goods or non-taxable services, it is not compulsory to get the business registered if the business deals in non-taxable. Similarly, an agriculturist engaged in the supply of produce obtained from the cultivation of land. And so an agriculturist whose activity is mainly in the cultivation of land, growing the crops. So if the person is an agriculturist engaged in agricultural work, it is not required to get the business registered. Next one, such person as notified by the government as per the recommendation of GST Council. GST Council will suggest that these are the businesses, for this business registration is not compulsory. So as per the recommendation given by the GST Council, the government will declare that these are the businesses whose registration is not compulsory. So what is the list? Time to time the government will notify. So these three are the persons. First one, the person who is engaged in the supply of non-taxable goods and services. Secondly, an agriculturist who is engaged in the activity of cultivation of land. Thirdly, such persons which are declared by the government on the notification given by the GST Council. So these are the persons where it is not necessary for registration. Now, following persons are required to obtain registration. Now, the GST Act has given which are the persons on which it's compulsory to get them businesses registered under GST. First one, very important, aggregate turnover. This is the basic criteria for getting the business registered. The GST will say they have given a specific amount. If the turnover exceeds that amount, the business must get themselves registered under GST. So what is the turnover, aggregate turnover? Every supplier must be registered in the state where he or she makes a taxable supply of goods or services if the aggregate turnover in the financial year exceeds the following limit. So every supplier of goods or services in any state should get their business registered under GST if the aggregate turnover in the particular financial year exceeds the limit. What is that limit? Here, supplier of goods. We have divided supplier of goods, supplier of services, and both supplier of goods and services. So first we'll take supplier of goods. If the aggregate turnover exceeds 40 lakh rupees, remember, if the aggregate turnover exceeds 40 lakh rupees, that business must get themselves registered. In some states, the limit is up to 20 lakh. That means if the turnover is more than 20 lakh, they should get themselves registered. In other states, more than 40 lakh, they should get themselves registered. So which are the states where the limit is 20 lakh? Here, in case of Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Puducherry, Sikkim, Telangana, Tripura and Uttarakhand. So these are the states where the limit is 20 lakh. Means if the turnover exceeds 20 lakh, they should get themselves registered under GST. These states. Apart from these states, other states, the limit is 40 lakhs. Second, supplier of services. If the business is engaged in supply of services, limit is 20 lakh for every state, for any state. Now, supplier of goods and services. If the business is engaged in both goods as well as services, the limit is 20 lakh. However, in case of Manipur, Nagaland and Tripura, this limit is in point A, B and C above is only 10 lakh. Again, one provision is there. If the business is located in any one of these three states, which are the three? Manipur, Nagaland and Tripura, then the limit, aggregate limit is given 10 lakh rupees only. That means if the turnover exceeds 10 lakh rupees, the business should get themselves registered in case of these three states. For any business, whether providing services, whether providing goods or whether providing goods and services. Now, aggregate turnover means the aggregate value of all the taxable and non-taxable supplies. Now, a student should be clear regarding what is the meaning of the term supply, aggregate supply. So, aggregate supply means all the supply of taxable and non-taxable supplies, exempted supplies and export of goods and services. All these things should be clubbed together in order to find out aggregate turnover. So aggregate turnover means all these taxable, non-taxable, exempt supplies and export. Now it excludes taxes if any charged under GST, CGST, SGST or IGST as the case may be. Turnover should not include the amount collected for CGST, SGST or IGST. Excluding these three, that will be taken as aggregate turnover. If the aggregate turnover in an entity of a person is below the limit mentioned above, such person need not get registered. If a business is there whose limit is below this limit given by the GST Act, that 20 lakh, 10 lakh. If a business turnover is below that aggregate limit, it is not required. It is optional on the part of the business to get the registered or not registered. Now, need not, provided they do not come under the compulsory registration category. One more category is given by the GST Act, that is compulsory registration, irrespective of the aggregated turnover. So, which are the persons whose registration is compulsory, irrespective of their turnover? First one, compulsory registration category. The following persons are required to make compulsory registration irrespective of the aggregate annual turnover in the financial year. So, GST Act has given some persons, for them the registration is compulsory irrespective of whatever turnover they achieved. So, which are the person? First one, registered under previous taxes. Before this GST comes, we have multiple taxes like sales tax, service tax, etc. So, if a person is already registered in the previous acts, for those persons, compulsory they have to get the registration under GST. Suppose my business was there since running from last 20-30 years and my business got registered under service taxes or under sales taxes. Now it is compulsory for me to transit, to shift from the old law to the new law, new GST, compulsory registration. Secondly, transfer through succession. If the business is transferred to the successor, then at the time of transferring or succession, the registration is compulsory. Where a business is transferred either on account of succession or any other reason to another person, business is transferred from one person to another person either through succession or any other mode. Business is transferred. In that case, the transferee should get the business registration compulsory. So such transferee or successor is to be registered with effect from the date of such transfer. Next one, amalgamation, merger. When two or more companies are merged together, it is called amalgamation. Or demerger. Demerger means single company is separated into two different companies. So demerger is opposite to merger. Merger means combining, demerger means separating. So when a business is merged or demerged, at the time of merger or at the time of demerger, registration is compulsory, irrespective of the turnover. Now last one, persons making interstate supplies of taxable goods. If the person is engaged in the supply of interstate, means from one state to another state, goods are supplied from one state to another state is called interstate supplies. So if the business is engaged in interstate supplies, compulsorily the business must be registered irrespective of the aggregate turnover. So we are discussing about the compulsory registration category. So there are some persons on whom GST has made compulsory registration, irrespective of the turnover threshold. Now, who are the persons? Already we have discussed, registered under previous taxes, and secondly, transfer through succession. Third one, amalgamation or demerger. These are the persons on whom compulsorily they have to get registered their business under GST. And persons making interstate supplies of taxable goods between different states. One party is staying in one state, the other party is staying in another state. So whenever there is supply of goods or services between two states, then compulsorily the business should be registered under GST. So apart from these are the points already we have discussed. Now few more persons are there on whom registration is compulsory. Who are the persons? Reverse charge. So persons receiving the supplies on which tax is payable by the recipient on reverse charge basis. Normally supplier have to pay the tax, but under certain circumstances reverse charge will be made. Reverse charge means the tax will be paid not by the supplier but by the recipient. The tax will be paid by the recipient of goods. In that case also compulsory registration is there. Next one, casual taxable person. Suppose if a person does not have a permanent place of business, always business moves from one place to another place. So a person who does not have a fixed place of business in the state or union territory from where he or she wants to supply the goods, always moving from one state to another state, compulsorily they have to get registered their business under GST. Next, non-resident taxable person. If a person does not have a permanent resident in India, that means always moving, always coming and going out of India, in that case also it is compulsory for the business to get registered. Next one, agent. If a person making supplies of goods on behalf of some other person, taxable person. Suppose an agent is there who is working on behalf of the principal. The principal is taxable. So along with that, agent must get his business registered compulsorily under GST. Next, these are the persons. Up to H, we have discussed about those persons on which registration is compulsory. Now, voluntary registration. For some businesses, registration are compulsory, but for some other businesses, it is voluntary. Voluntary means the business may register or may not register. So what the law says, GST law says, a person who does not come under the exempted category or under the compulsory registration category. For exempted category, no need to apply registration. Just now in this video, in the beginning, I have explained. For some businesses, not at all necessary to get registered, exempted. And some businesses, compulsory registration. Irrespective of the turnover, compulsory registration. So leaving these two, exempted category and compulsory registration category, and whose aggregate turnover is less than the threshold limit. What is the threshold limit? We have discussed 20 lakh and 10 lakh. So in most of the states, it will be fixed. If the turnover, aggregate turnover is more than 20 lakh, compulsory they have to register. If the services are more than 10 lakh, compulsory it has to be registered. So here a case is there where the turnover is less than the threshold, less than 10 lakh or less than 20 lakh. It is not compulsory for them, but still the business will get themselves registered. The person will get it registered. Why? To take the advantage of ITC, input tax credit. So to get the benefit of input tax credit can take voluntary registration. So if a person is there who does not come under the category of exempted category, he is not coming under the category of compulsory registration category, and the total aggregate turnover is below the threshold, then it is voluntary whether they can get themselves registered or not. So normally they will get themselves registered because they want to get the benefit of ITC, input tax credit benefit they will get if it is registered. So this is called the voluntary registration. So in this video, I have explained you about the process of registration. For which type of business it is not compulsory, exempted, and which are the business on which compulsory registration should be there, and what are the conditions for getting a business registered. Inshallah, next topic will continue in the next video.